Next up is...
Mirai Nikki,
aka
Future Diaries. And this one blew up when it got out. I know it came out around the same time as Dead Man Wonderland. And I had a friend, and I think also you, where we were like, how come Mirai Nikki blew up and no one watches Dead Man Wonderland? Because they have a very similar feel. And that's just a shame. But yeah, anyway.
I don't know if they had a similar feel. I don't know if Dead Man Wonderland has similar... Yeah, it kind of did. I know what you mean. Sorry.
Yeah. But we're talking Mirai Nikki now. And it's, again, I think this one is also like 25, 26 episodes, very standard length for anime, which is about, well, we're following this lonely high school student called Yukiteru Amano, or Yuki as he's also called. And basically he's really lonely, he's always on his phone and he's keeping notes on his phone, he feels really left out. And somehow he has these imaginary friends called Deus Ex Machina and Murmur. And Deus Ex Machina is like this big kind of Shinigami kind of character, whereas Murmur is this like very small, almost looks like a Pokemon kind of character. But they are tied together, Deus Ex Machina and Murmur, because Murmur is Deus Ex Machina's servant. But we learned that later. So to start with, it just kind of looks like, okay, so he has some imaginary friends. It's probably because he's really, really lonely. Then Yuki, he sees, what's her face? Yuno. But then in Yuki's class, there's this girl called Yuno who's also there. And one day, I don't remember if she does a drawing or makes a clay sculpture of Murmur. And he's like, what the hell? Can other people see this? And all of a sudden, he gets roped into this game where 11 people are part of it. And all 11 people have this kind of... They have this thing in common that they keep a diary somehow, a lot of them on their phone. And so they're in this game to become the next god, and only one of them can win. And the way they become the next god is by killing each other, but their diaries will give them clues if they're about to die to make them fight each other. And so the way that the clues come into the diary is based on how you kept the diary. So for instance, Yuki's diary will just show him what happens in the closest future around him, whereas Yuno's diary, because her diary is all about Yuki, her diary will show what's gonna happen to Yuki if she doesn't intervene. And so you see all these other characters who have these diaries, where one of them is called Tsubaki, who has a clairvoyance diary who can also tell the future of the people around her, and that's on a scroll. We have a breeder diary, which usually shows what will happen to breeds of dogs, so you can use the breeds of dogs. I think it's like Dobermans, that you can use them to then kill your enemies. And yeah, so there are a bunch of, all 11 of them have diaries like this, and so some of them help each other and some of them don't, and some of the diary holders, I think they are couples if I remember correctly, so they have like a double diary that they can use together. And so it's just about this death game, about who can become a god. And the plot twist is that apparently Yuno already won the game, but like she didn't want to part from Yuki because they fell in love the first time they played. And so they both said they would swallow this death pill, but she faked swallowing it. And so the god can make a wish on how the world should be, and she's like, okay, I wish to do this game again, because she really wants to save him now. And so she just becomes like really crazy with this obsession about saving him.
Yeah. So I remember Future Diaries, and I remember liking quite a lot in the beginning, because the idea of like, oh, he can manipulate, or he knows what happens in the future with his tech, Yuki. And it was quite interesting to see how all the diaries interconnected, intertwined, and trying to, suss out who can be the winner of this tournament to become the next god, I guess, the next Deus Ex Machina, if that's what it is, like a successor to him. So I thought it was okay, but then towards the end it just got really like insane. Like Yuno just went apeshit and was willing to kill anyone for Yuki, and it got a bit too much. Like, didn't Yuno kill her own parents?
Yeah, basically, because Yuno already won the game and then went back in the past to save Yuki, she had to kill herself and her parents in that timeline.
Yeah. Which, again, is just like, what's going on. And then Yuki sacrifices himself and he goes into like his own purgatory where he's just stuck with, is it Mumu he's stuck with? In this like black place where it's just darkness. And somehow Yuno manages to save her, which apparently according to the show was pretty impossible. It became a bit much for me in the end, and I like the concept. I like the diaries and the different skills of the diary, like the one with the dog, the one with...
There's also a guy with bombs and stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of diaries. So it was a fun show. The idea was good, but the ending just went up like 100. And I think it was at a time where anime was just like, you know, people would love any anime. So, you know, it was just like the more crazy it was, the better it was. And it was not the case. Like Dead Man Wonderland, I know we kind of referenced it here. Like, I thought it was okay, but it got a bit crazy with all the deaths and all the cutting and, you know, bodies being amputated. And I think it was just a theme back then. It was just like, yeah, let's just make it crazy as possible. Really hyper violent, really hyper crazy, of people dying, and just make it really hard to watch at some points, personally, I thought. So this one was like, yeah, this is just getting a bit too much. Not in like a traumatizing way, but like, oh, this is just cut off. It's just like, yeah, we need to make it as epic as possible. Like, so epic, and like more epic than the last famous anime. And like, you don't need to do that. You know, if you look at our tier list one, like things like One Punch Man and things of that nature, you don't need to be like so completely off the rails compared to how you started. You can still have the same trajectory. Yes, of course, the ending must be big and large and memorable, but you don't need to be like just completely off chart, which I felt Future Diaries ending was. So I'm quite inclined to put it between Handsome Pick and Down a Rabbit Hole. Like, it was, you know, it was fun when you watched it in the beginning, especially in the beginning, but it just got a bit like, this is just getting wild.
Yeah, and for me it's also like, it's not an anime I think I would watch again. Like, yeah, it was a fun flick to watch once, but again, it was like, it just has all these tropes that we've seen a million times. But luckily it has the interesting storyline around it that kind of saves it. But yeah, it did become like, oh my god, yeah, like, I think we really struggled with finishing it. I think I would put it down the rabbit hole. It's like kind of like Tokyo Ghoul for me, where it's like, yeah, it has good setups, it has good art style, but like, it's just not really landing.
I'm about to end this man's whole career.
That's a lie though. I remember like the penultimate episode, I'm like, yeah, okay, and you're like, no, we need to finish it, we have to finish it. Like, I remember like I was joking, like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna go to bed now. And like,
yeah,
no,
like
no,
I do think we had like, what was it, like we had 6 episodes left or something, where we were like, do we really want to finish this?
No. I'm saying before the second to last episode, it left off like a massive cliffhanger. And I joked saying, oh yeah, I'm going to bed now. And he's like, no, you're not. We're finishing this. Like, we need to know what happens. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, we need to suffer together.
I think you liked it. I had a feeling you liked it more than I did.
I think I liked it in the start, but like looking back at it, it's also like, it wasn't that special. I feel like it did have that kind of like, yeah, it's overhyped, but not super special.
Yeah, it's definitely overhyped. I would say it's very overrated.
Like, I wouldn't mind putting it on the line between Handsome Pick and Down the Rabbit Hole. But I think personally, looking back at it now, I would probably put it more down the rabbit hole.
Right. Next up is... Samurai Champloo. So Samurai Champloo is set in like an old Japan, like maybe 16th century, I think it was, or 16th to 18th century. And it has like a really cool style. Like, so this is the other anime that was written by the same person who wrote Carol and Tuesday, directed as well. This had a really cool vibe, like hip hop vibe, like really cool music. It follows this girl called Fu, who is trying to find her dad, or I guess a samurai who smells like sunflowers. That's how she referenced him, and I assume he was her dad. And she got to help with this other samurai called Mugen, who has this like wears red like a jacket and shorts, and has like an afro. And then this other one called Jin, and he's like wears like the traditional Japanese clothing with a blue overgarment, but like long Japanese male skirts kind of thing they were. And they both have very, very different personalities, to the point they didn't really like each other. So Jin was like stoic, cold, like typical, you know, hi, I'm Jin. yes, we should go here. This is the best way to do it. And Mugen is like proper like emotional, aggressive, like no, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. Oh my god, don't mess with me, man. I'm gonna knock you out. Like, you know, and it was just really funny to see these three people going in these journeys, and then like every episode, Jin and Mugen would start a fight because just they disagree with something, and they would start a fight, which was really well directed and really nicely choreographed. And you see these stories of them trying to find this samurai who smells like sunflowers, and they'll go to like different villages, and there'll be a story in each village they go to. Like the one time they went to a brothel and helped this person who's working there because she was like getting mistreated at the brothel and trying to help her escape. There was this really funny a baseball episode where they helped like a baseball team at an island, and you know, they were like missing some players, so Jin and Mugen volunteered to help them, and it was just hilarious. I was like, that's probably the anime that I laughed the most in an episode. It was just so funny. This anime overall in general is like really funny, very chilled, very good pace of like action and story development and learning about the characters. Very good music style choices, like the hip hop music they chose was really well. It's really good. It's a really good fit because of the way they draw the animation. It had a really good fit of how the music and the animation fit well together. The story was pretty interesting. Fu was sweet, you know, she was typical anime girl, like very sweet and like trying to be like resolver and carefree, and but still like very determined to help this person. And even if it seems like it's impossible, she's like, no, I'm still gonna find the samurai who smells of sunflowers. Definitely one of my favorite animes of all time for me.
I gotta be honest that I still don't remember Samurai Champloo that well. It's like I remember enjoying it. I remember having fun watching it. The episode that stood out to me the most was this random ass baseball episode that they had.
I mentioned.
But that was because it was so different from everything else. But it's like, no, I do remember enjoying it. I do remember that it was a good story, good cast of characters, good art style, but I really don't remember much about it other than that. And so I'm like, oh, I should really watch it again. That one and Cowboy Bebop are two of the anime I want to watch again to remember them, because like they feel so far back in my memory. And I know I enjoyed them, but I just can't remember much about them.
It's so funny you said Cowboy Bebop, because the person who directed Carol and Tuesday and Samurai Champloo is also the guy who directed Cowboy Bebop. Yeah, I would be up for watching Samurai Champloo again. It is so well done. The animation style at that time was pretty good. Obviously, if you look now, it looks a bit dated, but
yeah,
it doesn't throw you off enough at all from you to keep on watching. Such a good story. You see real development between Mugen and Jin. You know, they start to become friends and they become very like a team. So like towards the end, they're like really working together and helping each other out, and you kind of like really enjoyed it. Like, oh, it was funny when they argued and they fight, but then when they started like working as a team, you're like, oh yeah, this is pretty badass, because they're both really well skilled samurais. And then when they started working together, like, oh shit, now everyone's in trouble. Some of the plots were really well written out, and the script was like, it's hilarious. We should watch it again then, because it's just so funny and it's nice, and it's very relaxing to watch. Even though it's action packed, it's quite relaxing to watch. The aesthetic of the anime, like, you know, it's set in 16th century Japan. They walk through a lot of fields, through a lot of lakes, through old, though at that time it gets to be current, but like really old looking villages of where, you know, life is a lot slower paced, but then there's so much action.
You said it was the same person who made Cowboy Bebop who made Samurai Champloo, right?
And Carol and Tuesday.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of fun to see those three side by side, because I feel like with Samurai Champloo and Cowboy Bebop, you can definitely tell on the art style it's the same person, compared to Carol and Tuesday, where the art style is so different. So it's kind of fun to see. But I think I will allow you to place Samurai Champloo, because I really don't remember much about it.
Okay, fair enough. So yeah, I'll put this in wonderful.
So, Samurai Champloo in wonderful.
Yes.
And the next anime is... Serial Experiment Lain.
Okay. So, if you want to talk about animes that we talked about earlier, which is easy to watch, chilled, Serial Experiment is almost a complete 180, which it is enjoyable, personally, alright, so giving away where I think it will go on the list. But if you want to talk about like keeping your attention and the philosophy and the background messages and so many things going on, this anime is like the epitome of that. It is such a confusing anime, but when you watch it and you try to digest it, it's really, really good personally. So we follow this girl called Lain, or is she a girl? That's the question. Where she lives with her air quotes middle class family, where her mom is like pretty distant to her. Her older sister makes fun of her, and her dad's like completely obsessed with computers. Lain's like the typical like anime girl, which is she's lonely, she's doesn't really have many friends, so when she goes to school, she's just by herself generally. She finds an email from this girl called Chisa. Now Chisa was a student in her school who died, but she found an email from her because Chisa has uploaded herself in the virtual world, basically. So yeah, you know where I'm going with this. It's like really philosophical, where this girl Chisa is no longer in the physical world, but she's in the virtual world of the internet. And she referenced Lain as God, and Lain doesn't understand why she's being referenced as God. So you see this story of Lain trying to figure out, goes into the, basically they call it the wired, but it's actually basically internet. She goes into the internet and she tries to find out what is going on. You start to see her perception of reality and her consciousness are starting to be challenged. And then you later on find out that she's not actually a real person. She's a sentient computer program in the physical world. So yeah, that in itself, it just sounds so confusing. But when you watch it, it's so well done. Personally, like because I don't know why, I was like proper on it, like really focusing. Because I think before I watched it, I read everywhere like, oh, it's really confusing, really pay attention. So I did, and it is confusing, it is very complicated. So I paid attention, and I did manage to digest it and really understand it very well. But it's really sad. Like, you feel sorry for this girl Lain, and then what happens when you find out that she's not a real person and everything around her is a lie. Just the anime doesn't show her like really upset about it, but I just felt upset for her. Like, oh my god, she's already like isolated and lonely, and now her life isn't even real. It's just, I felt so sad for her. But yeah, I thought it was a really good anime.
Yeah. And I think actually I might have watched like an episode or two before I watched it with you as well, where I was like, wow, this is different. Like, not in a bad way, just like, this is different. And so watching it with you, I remember, I think we could watch like 2 or 3 episodes at the most at a time, because it is like really like just brain like it rings your brain. Not brain damage, like, but it really rings your brain, and you have to think about, and it provokes you in a way. And she also, in this, I think it's in the virtual world, she meets this old man where they start talking about a philosophy theory that exists in the real life and has something to do with like existence and what does it mean to be alive and stuff. And it's like, it's very heavy in a way. And also is so slow paced, like a bit like a Ghost Hunt or Ghost Hound, where it's like it's not that it's not entertaining, but it's like it's a slow pace. It takes a lot of mental energy from you. You probably can't watch more than 2 episodes in a day because it's just like really thought provoking. The art is really nice. Like, the art actually kind of reminds of Ghost Hound as well.
Yeah, the art is really, really nice. And the way, sorry, I just want to go a bit more on the art, like the way they show the different realities of real reality and the wired, air quotes, the internet realities. And like, it was so, I really liked the design because you could really tell it was something like really ominous. Is it ominous, the word? Or is it sinister? Yeah, menacing, I guess. Yeah, ominous, menacing about it. Like, you see the 2 worlds like intertwining, and when you see the wired world intertwining with the natural world, there's something really sinister about it. But I really felt it through the animation. Like, oh man, this wired world is kind of scary. These people who uploaded their consciousness onto the internet but still existing within reality. It was something really scary about it. They didn't say anything something scary.
It was unsettling.
Yeah, and it is a horror. It's considered as a horror anime, isn't it? So
I don't know if it's horror. Like, I wouldn't personally call it a horror, but it's definitely I would more call it like psychological, maybe thriller. I don't even know if I would call it thriller, but I would call it psychological. And if I remember correctly, they also did something with the colors in Real World and the Wired, which is the virtual world, where, if memory serves me, and it might not, in the Real World the colors were a lot more dull, where in the Wired they were a bit more vibrant and almost looked like it was luminescent. So, because I do remember that scene where the Wired bled into the Real World, and it like there were some wires up ahead, like telephone wires that, became like blue squares or something, where they really used colors cleverly to put the 2 apart, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, no, it is it had a very good art style. I still, it's definitely psychological thriller. But there are some scenes like when Lain was like connected up with. There's this scene where Lain has all these wires connected up to her, and you just see her looking really sad and really like ugh. That was it's kind of like horrifying in some for me. It's like sometimes it can be horrifying.
But I think we were also talking about in the end, like, is that actual reality? Because, like, the whole anime is just Lain walking around and questioning her reality, and then the virtual reality, or the wired, bleeding more and more into her everyday life. So, like, her being a robot in the end, is that actually real, or is that just because she is now so living in the wired that she is wired to it, basically? So it's like very, like, it's very much like you know, analytical. You can analyze it forever. You can probably analyze why they use certain colors, like trying to do deeper meanings, and that's also what makes it so, I don't know if draining is the right word, but it definitely takes, you know, mental energy to watch it. And yeah, again with the slow pace, and this is such a shame because I feel like we're so used to like anime having a bit of a faster pace, and I think this is true for films as well, that a lot of the psychological films kind of get pushed aside because they're slower paced, and it's not very many people who can watch slower paced things, and usually those are very good.
Yeah, this is a good one, but yeah, the pace will put people off. I mean, I think it's 13 episodes, which just helps a lot with the pacing, but yeah, it can be a bit tough to watch.
Yeah, like it will suffer from the slower pace for sure, and that's sad. And then, like I feel like both for Serial Experiment Lain and for Ghost Town, it's sad that they're kind of held down by their pace. Like the pace will not be for everyone, and that is their biggest downside, and it kind of is. It is a shame.
So where would you put this? I think I'll put it between Painted Roses Red and Handsome Pig.
Yeah, I would put it there as well.
Cool. Okay, that was easy enough. And finally,
Terra in Resonance. And Terra in Resonance is our final anime, and I think you recommended this one to me, if I remember correct. Like you found it somewhere and you were like, let's watch it. And it's a short 12 episode one, and it's just so good. Like it's so good. It's about these two guys who they don't really have names. They use numbers instead of names, and one of them is called 9 and one of them is called 12. And so it's they are from this, I believe they're from this orphanage kind of place, and they escaped, and they're now doing some kind of terrorism because they want to draw attention to something that happened to them, or to the fact that they exist. So they're planning and carrying out these acts of terrorism where at the end of every terror attack they do, they make a video, but they are also very meticulous that they do not hurt anyone with their terror attacks. So they will always make the terror attacks and then make a bunch of clues, and they'll like pull fire alarms before their bombs go off, so people will be out of the building before the bombs go off, because they're like, yeah, we're not gonna hurt anyone, but we do want to draw attention to ourselves because we have a message and we need people to hear this message, and they will hear us if we blow stuff up, but we don't want anyone to like get hurt or die or anything. So you just follow them as they do these terror things and accidentally kidnap a schoolgirl who becomes their confidant, and you know, they tell her a bit about their life, and they find out another person from this place they were from, which is a girl called 5, was also alive, and now she's like trying to join their terror attacks or trying to draw attention to herself. But unlike them, she doesn't care if people get hurt, where they're very like, people cannot get hurt. And it's kind of sad to follow them because you actually root for them. Despite them being terrorists, you root for them and you understand their message and you understand their pain. So you want people to understand them. That's how well they're made, these characters, that you're not even like, oh yeah, no, they need to put behind bars. It's like, of course you're like, they do need to be spoken to. Someone needs to help these boys. Someone needs to give them a psychologist. Someone needs to hear them out. Like, But there is this one detective who chases them down, and I do think in the end he has to kill them because they are considered a threat to society, and you feel really, really like... I remember choking up and crying about them dying despite them being terrorists, because you're just so, like, connected to, you understand their message, even though you're like, no, it's not the right way to get attention, but I understand what you're trying to do, and you're always making sure that no one gets hurt when you blow shit up. That it's just monetary stuff, and that doesn't make it right. So it's like, they're kind of anti-heroes. You still root for them.
Yeah, I think anti-hero is the best description for them. Yeah, it was pretty sad how they ended. So the reason I told you to watch or recommended this is because the guy who made Samurai Champloo, Cowboy Bebop, and Karen Tuesday also made this. So I was like, yeah, we should watch this as well. So it's made by the same guy, Shinichiro Watanabe.
It's your favorite creator.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like he has an album called Space Dandy, which I haven't seen, but everything else he's made I've just loved. There's nothing I haven't disliked.
And he makes really... Is it a he?
Yeah.
Okay, he makes really solid stories all over.
And he really thinks about every character, and every moment has to have a meaning. So yeah, this one exceeded my expectation. I thought, oh, this should be good because it's made by the guy who made Samurai Champloo and Cowboy Bebop. And yeah, like the terrorist attacks that 9 and 12 did were really interesting because they leave out riddles for you, the detective who's called Kenjiro Shibazaki, to figure out how to solve them. And how he solved them was really interesting.
And they always made sure to tag somewhere with the words VON, where the detective was like, what does that mean, VON, VON? And then it turns out that Von is actually Icelandic for hope. And that's the same as the opening song, which is this really like solemn Icelandic song about the passing of the seasons and how spring usually brings hope with it. Because I found it with subtitles. and it's like, it's very... I know you get sad listening to it, because I was like, oh my god, I love this song, but it's a very solemn song. Very beautiful solemn song. And it just fits the tone of the anime so well. And again, this is one like, yeah, the characters are developed well, the character designs are good, the way they interact is really good, like the way they play off each other, and also just the way you find yourself rooting with the terrorists, that you're like, oh, you're kind of questioning your own morale, or like, what is real morale, but like without going too deep into it, because you still understand what they're doing is bad.
It's a really well thought out story, you know, you do root for them, and that's how well they're written. You do root for 9 and 12, even though they're creating air quotes terrorist attacks, but they're not harming anyone. And it's kind of short. It's like 12 episodes. So in terms of short anime that 11 episodes. In terms of these short animes that we've listed, for me it's just like, it's so well done. The pacing was great. I didn't remember any lull moments or like, oh, I can't, like, can we skip this? Can we speed this up? I didn't ever feel like that. I just really enjoyed it. Because there's something sinister about what happened to 9 and 12 when they were younger, and you really want to know what happened. And when you find out, it makes so much sense. Roots you even more for 9 and 12 or what they're doing. Like, oh yeah, I mean, no wonder what you're doing. The fact you're even doing this terrorist attack is amazing. Like, you're trying to get justice for what happened to you when you were in that orphanage. So
yeah, you're very invested, and it's like also the fact that it doesn't really need more than those 11 episodes. It's like, yeah, it's the perfect amount. If you had done it longer, I don't think it would have worked.
Yeah, so it's a fantastic series. Really well done, really well thought out.
Well executed.
Yeah, the characters are really interesting. 9 and 12 are very charming and really cool. Couple of dudes that you just want to root for, and like very sweet. So yeah, you know, they're not anything as you imagine a group of terrorists would be like, but yeah.
And also the fact that when you get introduced to them while they're in school, because when they do the terror attacks, they go anonymous biker helmets on.
Yeah.
To put it on video, but like in their everyday life, they just go to school. So you're introduced to them as if they are ordinary people, which is like, I guess that's also the terrifying thing of like actual terrorists, is like, at the end of the day, they are ordinary people who decided to use violence for whatever reason.
Yeah. Okay, so where would you want to place Terror Resonance?
I think, personally, I would put it in Wonderful.
Yeah, same here. So, Terror Resonance, definitely an anime I would really recommend to people. It's such a short anime, it's so well done. Terror Resonance, so we're going to put it into the Wonderful. A really fantastic anime, nice, short one, but really well executed, really action-packed, but also really well told story.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's our video.
That's our tier list for this time. I think we have a couple more that we want to make.
Yeah. Let us know, what do you think of our list? Do you agree? Do you not agree? Were you a Future Diaries fan and you just hate where we just put Future Diaries?
Yeah, and if you've seen some of these shows, what were your general thoughts on the shows?
Cool. Alright, well, thank you guys for watching.
And see you in the next one.
Thank you guys so much for watching our video.
If you liked our video, make sure to give it a like. And if you like what we do, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell.
See you guys in the next one.
Bye!